Make a
No,
noise.
you're
I
fine.
feel like it's getting picked up on the mic. She's like playing with her toy. She is not.
You're totally fine. If for anyone who's wondering, there's a dog and a cute puppy in the background playing around as we try and tell this side of the story.
I really just wanted to have a chance to like be able to spread awareness about this,
Yeah.
specifically outside the Smash community.
And that's the pretty crazy part to me, knowing your story, and especially all the things that have happened over the past month or so. It seems that crazier things keep on happening, and so the other stuff kind of just gets, left behind under the surface. And so I wanted to have an opportunity with you as an interview to kind of have people to go to a certain place where they can know your side of the story, what happened according to you, and then we're going to talk about Ally and his side, his response as well, near the end of things. So kind of where I wanted to start, obviously, for those of you guys who don't know, Bree, the ex-girlfriend of Ally has had, well, a lot of stories around him in recent weeks, obviously retiring as well from the Smash scene entirely around amidst all of these things. So Bree, I wanted to ask you if you wanted to start off from the very start of your guys' relationship, how you guys met, how that whole thing initially started, if you don't mind explaining those to the viewers.
Yeah, so we met through the Smash community. I think he saw him like online on GameFAQs or something like that and said something to him, and then we were like friends on, this is gonna make me sound really old, but on AIM, so like AOL Instant Messenger.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, and this was back in 2008. So and then we met at a tournament, and then I think like in the December 2008, that's when our relationship started.
Okay.
And oh, sorry. Is there anything you wanted to ask?
No, you're fine. You're fine.
Oh, okay.
I kind of just
All
want to know
right.
the initial things. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, it started in 2008, and I would say that it ended very early 2012, so it's like around 3 years. About in 2009 is when I first started having symptoms of my PTSD, and I would say probably like a year and a half into the relationship, I was trying to get out of it, and he would like threaten to kill himself if I wanted to get out of the relationship. So I was actually in a relationship like a year and a half longer than I wanted to be. When I finally did decide, or finally went through with breaking up with him, it was in 2012. Then there was like a period, about 2-year period, where I wasn't really talking to him, but he was still around me. So around like 2014, 2015 is when I started working for him again.
Okay, because I think that's where the situation to a lot of people, gets a bit hairy, right? You're still around him, working with him. And so I know you mentioned in your story as well, a bit of confusion between you and the community thinking you guys were still together. And apparently he was possibly telling people that you guys were still together. Could you clarify that a little bit as well?
Yeah, so when I broke up with him in 2012, one of the things that he would do to like try to get me not to break up with him is saying like, oh, what will my family think, or what would the community think? And so when I finally did break up with him, that was like one of the, I guess, concessions he had me make, was that I didn't tell anyone. Like I told my family, but I didn't tell anyone in the community. I didn't tell his family. So I didn't think that he was going to let that go on for very long. I thought he just needed time to tell the community, to tell his family. But he was worried about being bullied by the community if they found out, and worried about his family talking bad on him. So I agreed, but it's like I was trying to get out of an abusive relationship. So it was kind of just like, say whatever you have to say to him. It was not something I was actually comfortable with.
Yeah,
so,
for sure.
So I was out of the Smash community around that time. Like I used to go to tournaments and stuff like that, but around 2012, I wasn't as active. Then in 2015, I think it was 2015, I went to a tournament in Japan, and then 2016, I went to a tournament in Michigan. So in 2016, that was when I really noticed that he was still telling the lie, because I went to a tournament and people were asking me if I was his girlfriend, and most of the time I just did not know how to respond. I never responded and said I was, but most of the time I kind of just didn't know how to respond to that. And
by that time, how long had you guys, by your terms, been broken up?
3 years then, I guess, around 3 years.
So quite some
around
time.
3 years. Yeah. So at I believe it was the Big House 6. So at that tournament, people were asking if we were together, and it was uncomfortable for me. And I think he also saw me with one of my old friends, and people were starting rumors. They were like saying that I was with him, and so they were confused because they thought we were together, and they came to him and told him that.
Now, is
and
this
then
is this where Larry? Sorry, is this where Larry?
Oh
comes
no,
into the picture?
Larry is in two. is the Big House 7. So
Okay, sorry. Yeah. My bad. Wrong house.
No. I mean, I'm just trying to establish that least at the Big House 6 is when I told him that I was uncomfortable with it.
Okay.
So yeah, so he found out and told me people were saying that, and I was just like, well, me and this guy were just friends, but it shouldn't matter to you anyhow. And he was just really upset. He was like, I don't want to have to deal with this right now. He was saying it was really stressing him out, and he didn't want to deal with, you know, the whole people finding out about us being broken up, like while he was at that tournament.
And this goes on for like several years.
Yeah.
And so it's almost, sorry again to interrupt, it's kind of a frantic thing. So kind of general gist for people watching, would you consider this then, so you get yourself out of an abusive relationship. So at this point in time, even years down, are you scared of telling people you're broken up, or why is the reason you're not making it official and saying, hey, we're not together, like I'm on my own now? Why exactly was the reason, if you don't mind sharing?
The reason is simple, because I actually have told people that we were broken up, but it didn't matter because he was such a big presence in the community over me that it would take him saying it for anybody to actually care or for anybody to actually know. So I did tell somebody, and when he found out I told that person, he got really mad, and he was just like, you told so-and-so? Like, he has a really big mouth. He's going to go tell everyone. And then he found out, and he went and he corrected it. So he privately corrected it with that person. And I think he told me that he told them the full situation, but it turned out that he had just told them something along the lines of, like, I don't know, like maybe we were going through something, and for that person not to talk about the relationship. So anytime that I did try to correct it, he could easily shut it down and just change the narrative. It was something he had to do, and he wouldn't do it.
You know, just you saying that, it's kind of scary to think of someone, you know, if you are dating someone in the esports scene or any professional scene, and because they are the professional and you are the girlfriend in the situation, how much of a voice they can have over you. Even if what you're saying is the truth, they can simply, like you said, change the narrative. You know, kind of hearing you say that is kind of just a scary notion for anyone in a relationship with a pro player. I never really thought about that from an outside perspective, how easily things can be changed based off their word of mouth compared to yours.
It is pretty scary because they have a bigger presence. So if it's a regular breakup and it gets out into the public, that's kind of scary, because then they can label you a certain way, and then you probably can't date within that community anymore if you really want to, or it makes it difficult for you. If it's in my situation, it wasn't a regular relationship, regular breakup, it was abusive. So even with me coming out and saying it was abusive, no one really took my word for it. They did until he came out and said, no, I didn't do it. And that was all he had to say.
Which is the terrible part, because, I know we're not even to the point of the story of his reply, but I remember with his statement that we've all seen, it didn't ever seem like he really denied much of what you said. It was almost just kind of trying to focus on separate points.
Yeah, that's the part that really, really got me when I first came forward and, he put the statement out. I didn't read a statement because I have PTSD and I didn't want to be triggered. So I just didn't read it. And I told people, I was like, I'm not reading it because there's nothing that he can say that justifies what he did to me. And there's no way he can prove that he didn't do this to me, because it happened. He did this to me. But then when I did end up reading it this year, I saw the stuff in it and I was just like, yeah, no, he didn't even disprove anything that I said. He just changed the subject and tried to make it look like I was the abusive one.
Yeah, and even more so, I think if we do jump into his statement, one of the things I did see, the only thing I really saw that kind of, I guess, made sense in his statement was the whole suicidal threats thing. And this comes down to, he did show a few messages where he was joking about potentially killing himself, which in my opinion, it happens a lot, in the community throughout friends.
It wasn't a joke, but...
but it's hard for us to see it in messages and take it seriously. Was he also saying these things? Because here's whenever was brought up, was he saying these same things in person? Because to me, that brings it to that's one of the issues I wanted to clarify.
And that's one of the problems too, is that there was actually somebody else, because I in my post I talked about how from this tournament in Canada Cup, I drove him back because it was on my way back to school. Drove him back and dropped him off in Michigan, and before we got to the border, it was maybe a 4-hour drive or something like that to the border, and he was crying, he was hysterical, he was saying he would kill himself if it came out, if I liked Larry, or I just dropped Larry's name in there, but I assume that you're gonna
okay. Yeah.
But if I liked Larry, he was gonna kill himself. If people found out that we weren't together, he would kill himself. And this is somebody crying hysterically in my car. That's not a joke. It's not a joke. But and I put that in my post, didn't have the text to back it up, obviously, because
yeah,
it
because you
happened
can't
in person.
unless you're recording a video of him, which just makes you a terrible person at the time.
Right.
So yeah, that was another thing about his statements where it's hard for you to prove that he was saying these things in person unless you're creepily recording him all the time until he says it.
But it turned out there was actually a person that same day that he told he was suicidal. That person just didn't come forward with that information at the time. So that person had the chance to come forward and corroborate what I was saying. They just chose not to, and it made me look like a liar.
Mm-hmm.
But these threats were real. Like I was not the only person who knew about these threats.
Yeah.
I didn't put that evidence out into the public. I did present it to the conduct panel with my case. But I mean, I'm just gonna say, like, out there were people who knew that he was suicidal or that the suicide threats were real. And even if no one really knew that they were real, like, I take them seriously. Like, I can't not take a suicide threat seriously.
And especially when we look back even towards the more allegations, of course, you bring up emotionally abusive and very controlling relationship. What kind of touched me the most about your post was the situations you described, not only him threatening suicide to maybe, you know, have you take a certain action or do something in particular, otherwise you'd be worried about him. But I take into effect the Air Zoo story, where it was Ally and it was your brother, correct?
What is this exactly? Sorry.
The Air Zoo story in the post.
Oh, the Air Zoo. Okay, yeah, sorry.
Because this goes along the lines.
Like someone's name.
No, sorry. It's a story you told in that post, but it also kind of correlates with of him being controlling because apparently, in terms of you having a job, he wanted you to pay for things, but he didn't want you to have a job to devote the time to him. Would you want to speak on that at all?
Yeah, I mean, basically, I pretty much any abuse that fell under domestic abuse, whether I made it public or not at the time, that was being done to me. So yeah, he was financially abusive. And I didn't realize it because they say it in a way where you don't really realize it. And so he would tell me, you know, oh, you need to get a job. I can't pay for everything. Or it's really hard for me paying for everything. Then other times he would tell me, oh, your money or my money is your money. And money doesn't mean anything to me. But he never let me actually physically hold on to cash. So, you know, he could control me or make me feel bad. So if he was mad at me or something like that, that was a possibility. He could make me feel bad when he had to pay for something. And when we went to the Air Zoo, you know, even just as being like a date, not saying that a guy always have to pay for a woman, but
it's not far-fetched to think if you're going to a zoo that you buy your friend, your partner, whoever you're with, buy.
And I'm sure everyone was under that impression. It was just me, my brother, and him. So who else was going to pay for my ticket? And he knew I didn't have any money. But when we got to the desk and the lady is asking, you know, for the money, he makes a scene. Like, he looks at me, he's just like, what? Like, I have to pay for you too? And it's just like, yeah, who did you think was going to pay for me? And my brother just ended up paying for me because he didn't want to have to deal with it. And I mean, just saying that my brother didn't have to deal with it, this was something that was frequent to the point where we didn't even discuss it. He just paid so that he wouldn't have to deal with this situation again.
Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, I guess that's the touch on the points of, you know, at least a place where people can understand your side of things. I think, and oftentimes these stories you can tell not only by the background details you give, but also by the tone of voice that these kind of things bring up, that obviously you're not lying about these situations. You know, they did happen, and kind of wanted to explain those. But we lead into, you know, past Big House 6, you said into Big House 7.
Yeah.
We get further down the line, and here's where this guy Larry comes in, and here's where I need some explanation for you on exactly what happened.
So do you want me to go like fully into the whole Larry thing? 'Cause I've dropped it just because people try to attack me whenever I bring it up because they think Larry was trying to help him in a friendly way. I mean, if you want me to go into the Larry side of it, I can.
We can. Is there a possible way we keep it like real short? Because I'm just really confused by this Larry figure in the story. And
yeah, we can keep it real short. I just want to like preface by saying like me calling out Larry along with Ally. I just did that because Larry put me in danger. Had Larry not told on me, I would have never brought him up. So even though I talked to him privately, if he would have just never involved himself, I never would have brought it up. It's not just me trying to drag him down.
For sure.
But basically what happened was that I think at the Big House 7, I went working, doing some media work at that tournament. And I believe, Ally and Larry, they were rooming together. So we were with each other a lot. And I kind of felt like he liked...
What year is this?
This is 2017. Yeah.
Okay.
2017.
So stay with me. This is where people kind of, at least from me, outside perspective, get confused. By now, you two are clearly broken up, correct?
Yeah,
But you're
we're
working
broken up,
together?
but people don't know because he's lying to them.
Are you guys working together still, in a sense?
Yeah, we work together.
Okay. And so Larry and Ally are rooming together, and you were about to say?
Yeah, and I'm doing media work, so I'm rooming with them too. And like Larry and I've known him for like since 2009. But I hadn't really ever interacted with him that much. But I guess we did because we were in the same room, and I kind of felt like he liked me, and I was like liked him. So after the big, like nothing happened at the Big House 7, but after the Big House 7, that was when a lot of those screenshots I think that I posted came up, where Ally is saying like, you're up to something, and he's like being suspicious, trying to figure out why I'm telling him again, this would be at least the second time again, that I don't want to lie about being in a relationship with him. And so this time he's trying to say that me lying is because, or me saying that I want to be out of the relationship is because of Larry, not just because I don't like lying. And I even bring it up to him like, no, I said I had a problem at the Big House 6, and Larry was there, but like I didn't even talk to Larry then. But he basically has a problem with it. He comes up with a lot of reasons why he's not okay with it. He tells me I can't date anyone in the community. He tells me I can't date anyone in the community he doesn't like. When I ask him if he likes Larry, his response is, I don't hate him. So yeah. So later on in the whole story, I end up trying to tell Larry, like, I don't really, in my opinion, I didn't think that he was your friend. And that was the reason why, because, you know, I don't hate him doesn't sound to me like your friends, but yeah. I could be wrong, just my interpretation. But yeah, so he didn't give me a definitive answer on whether or not he liked Larry. So he's just trying to find a way, I think, to stop me from that whole thing. But then there was a tournament a couple weeks later that I went to where Larry and he were at. And Larry and I ended up reciprocating feelings. And this would be the tournament where on the drive back, so this was Canada Cup, on the drive back, he was really upset and he was really hysterical. If you want me to just jump right forward to like the rest of like Larry's involvement, because Larry and I weren't really even together, but the rest of his involvement is just, I came to him later, I think like February 2018, and I was telling him about how Ally was abusive, and I was asking him for help because I never really dealt within the community. So I was kind of trying to figure out what was the best way for me to put the information out there if I wanted to, what was the best way to go about it. Mm-hmm. And Larry was kind of saying a couple of different things that weren't all that helpful. He did express that if I were lying, this would affect Ally's reputation. So that was something that he did say to me. And I'm pretty sure I just said like that I wasn't lying or that I was telling the truth. And I showed him some screenshots, some of the ones that are posted online. But eventually he said that he didn't want to have anything to do with it and he was not going to talk to me about it anymore. And I told him that was fine. I was like, if I send you any more screenshots, that's just like, you know, it was just to motivate me to actually
take action or speak up.
Yeah, take action. Yeah. But it turned out he was not going to talk to me about anything. Because even when I like eventually changed the subject and tried to talk to him about something else, he didn't respond. So I was just like, oh, okay, I guess this guy isn't my friend anymore. But yeah, and then there's like some screenshots I think on my post where Ally is trying to intimidate me into not saying anything. And he's like, yeah, someone who cares about me told me what you're planning to do. And so I was just like, okay, well,
he knows. So he knows.
Yeah, so that put me in danger. I don't know if like most people know, but like the first 90 days of trying to leave an abusive relationship is the most dangerous for the victim. So, you know, that was putting me in danger because I hadn't told Ally yet that I planned on leaving, and Larry let him know before that. So I did talk to Larry in person about it, and he apologized for what he did. But when I like kind of explained to him like why he thought, you know, why he knew it was wrong, or if he knew it was wrong, he said that he would do it again, like in the same situation. So I didn't really accept the apology at that point. But I have to say he did apologize. But he also, when I talked to him in person, the exact words that he used was that he warned Ally. So people are saying that Larry, you know, what Larry did was harmless. He was probably like upset and wondered if his friend really did this and checked in with his friend. But the exact words that Larry used with me was that he warned Ally. So to me personally, I don't think it was something that was innocent.
You know, because Ally also said he doesn't hate Larry.
Yeah.
So, and again, kind of summarizing for outside viewers, outside the scene itself, because it is such a confusing thing to think about. Trying to put like people in your shoes. You are dating a professional Smash player, someone who has a bigger voice than you, and you're trying to tell your story. You confide in someone you had relations and trust with, also in the scene, who is not really, to your knowledge, friends with your ex at the time, who still thought you were somehow dating, and he decides to spill the beans to him, who you just told you were in an abusive relationship with, and you are scared of.
Yeah.
So that blows my mind.
The weird thing too is that Larry said something along the lines of like, "This is scary." Like he said something that showed, if he were to believe what I was saying was true, he said something that showed that he saw how this would be scary for someone. And honestly, it was when Larry said that to me that it kind of like made me realize like, whoa, I really am in a bad situation.
Yeah, if it's scary to someone else, and it just kind of, it's weird, this storyline. It's almost like an actual crazy news story you wouldn't believe to hear, because you were scared of someone, you were scared of them knowing you're trying to say this stuff. The guy you told also says this is pretty scary if it's true, and then he tells the person that you're spilling the beans about that you're scared of.
Yeah.
Putting you in harm's way or potential danger if you are really scared of this person and what you're saying is true. So to me, that's just a very weird thing for a guy like Larry to do in this sense. It's kind of unbelievable as well. And so I hope people realize that, obviously, if they were friends, you put them in a tricky situation, but based on what you told me, it doesn't sound like they were the closest buds.
I mean, I would say, like I said, like, I'm not trying to like drag anybody. So I would honestly say, in Larry's defense, I believe Larry considered them to be friends. I just didn't feel like it was necessarily reciprocated on Ally's end. And when I decided that I was going to leave the relationship, I thought I would be, quote unquote, I guess, nice to Larry, since he was kind of cool to me. And I thought I would just tell him the truth. Yeah. Because I had always wanted to tell Larry that back when we were talking. But I just didn't.
And I'm sure by this point, it's been years. You've been confiding in yourself. You wanted to tell somebody, and so someone comes along you think you can actually trust, and so you tell them.
Yeah, and like I said, like I wouldn't have ever said anything about Larry. If he helped me privately, I wouldn't have said anything. I wouldn't mention his name. There's other people in the community who have helped me privately. If he didn't help me privately, I wouldn't have said his name. The only reason why I said anything was because what he did was extremely dangerous, and I wanted people in the community to know, like, if you're put in this situation, don't do the same thing as him. Yeah, because it puts people in danger.
Clearly, I'm not trying to antagonize and single out Larry here. Obviously, we're trying to point out that it could have been much worse. Imagine you confide in him, he tells Ally, and let's say something terrible does happen because of it. Then it becomes a situation that it potentially could be is where the danger lies. But obviously not the focus here. The focus is the crazy story that is Ally and the relationship itself. So now we kind of reached the 2017-2018 period. I think I've really touched on your main arguments. Obviously, the whole Larry situation as well, what kind of led to that. Touching quickly on Ally's statements, his statement overall, I think one of the main points we already talked about was the suicidal threats, which you did say took place in person, which is another terrible thing to think about. If someone's going to threaten that in order to make you make certain decisions, it's terrifying, but it happens, and probably more than we know in relationships. I guess one thing I want to touch on was one thing he said was Bree forced me into branding his own and my own team, though neither of us really had the time for it. Any clarification on that, if you remember back to at this point in time?
Yeah. So I think this was probably 2016. It was right before he got sponsored. Me and the other Team Ally member, we were talking to him, and we were like explaining to him like what we could do to help him, and we said like we would do it on a trial basis. He wouldn't have to pay us for, like, this was over the summer, so it's like, you won't have to pay us, we'll just show you what we can do over the summer, and then if you want to keep us on, then we can talk terms of like how you'll pay us. So in my understanding of that, that's not me pressuring somebody to do something. The way that he explained it to me later was just like, well, yeah, you pressured me into it because I can't say no to you. But
interesting.
But I tried to make it as open, like, hey, you don't have to do this, but if you want to do this. So we worked for free over the summer. I think I want to say September maybe is when we were like discussing terms, and he said that he wanted us to work for him. So we were working for him, but he was not very cooperative during that. Like, after he decided to pay us, he was not very cooperative. And he would say sometimes he would say like, oh, I don't want to do this. And then I would be like, okay, but then he would find another way, I guess, to like fight about it. And then when I would say like, okay, well, I'm done doing this, I'm not doing this anymore, when I would try to quit, he would turn it around and say like, oh, well, there was like a period in Brawl where I was doing bad and I didn't give up, so you shouldn't give up either. So the other thing about like saying that I pressured him into it, there were moments where I myself was saying I was going to quit. And if he did feel like I pressured him into it, then that would have been the out for him, was letting me quit, but he wouldn't.
Very interesting stuff. Yeah, I think it kind of wraps up his final statement as well. We already talked about the fact he didn't really deny much of your allegations, but I think he kind of summed it up to a certain degree when he talked about the emotional abuse. You guys just straight up, quote unquote, you guys straight up just weren't good for each other. And I think, after hearing all of this, that's probably a seemingly fair way to put it. After all that's happened, just not good for each other. But it's also kind of a way, in my opinion, when he said that, to kind of openly saying, yeah, we had some rough patches. Like a lot of this stuff that people are accusing me of potentially did happen, was kind of the way I read that.
I mean, I think that's the way you read it. The way that I read it, the way that I interpreted it, I guess, was him trying to say that it was just a regular bad relationship and we both did wrong. And
okay. So
that's the way that I interpreted it.
That makes, so he's kind of trying to make it seem like this is, this happens,
Yeah, it's kind of just like this happens. But when I was the first known victim. When you have a second victim, I feel like it's not necessary. It seems like it's less the people that you're involved with to me and more you. That's my opinion on it. That's what I think.
And I think that would also be a fair statement given, we've had a lot happen around him lately. I think there's obviously a few deeper issues, not only in that situation, but in the entire scene right now for FGC. A lot of things going on that are pretty crazy to think that are actually occurring.
Yeah, I heard about Evo, so
yeah,
honestly, yeah,
it's like the best of times and the worst of times right now for FGC. Is what I'm seeing.
Yeah, so I mean, honestly, that's why I want to spread awareness, especially out of the Smash community too, because I feel like people outside the Smash community probably have better optics on this, So I would like to spread information. I hope that there's, if there's somebody else out there going through something similar, I would hope maybe hearing me speak out about it can like encourage them to get help, even if they don't choose to speak out publicly, like maybe get help privately.
Heck yes. Those are, I'm glad I had you on just to say those words, to be honest. And especially a person in a situation like you were in, when you're in a relationship with someone who you see not necessarily more powerful, but they have more of a voice, like you said several times, it can be very scary to come out and say these kind of things. So for anyone out there, those are very nice words you use there. With any last words you'd have on the case itself? Again, thank you for coming on and explaining your side of the situation. So hopefully people can, if they ever dig upon the situation, they have a clarification on your side of things and how things came out. Yeah.
I don't know if you want me to just like insert in there like the stuff that I've been talking about recently on Twitter. Because the abuse that I made public wasn't the full extent of the abuse that I made public. I don't know if you can even like talk about that on your show or not, so I would understand if you can't.
I think I know it's super unfortunate to say. I think we'll keep it at that, but honestly I'll be linking your Twitter and socials down below because I know the story does continue, and that's obviously the harsh part about this. But yeah, I'm glad we had you on at least for this situation at presently now, and I know so much else went on, and that's just how crazy the situation has become. Yeah. But if anything else, I mean, I could point out I think there was like one of the I don't want to say one of the false things that he said in his statement. I could also point out. Yeah, if you want to, anything. Yeah, there was and maybe you can like read it later or something like that. But there was a part where he was kind of saying that the lie didn't pose a problem for either one of us, and it did pose a problem for me. I made it known to him that it posed a problem for me in 2016 before Larry. And in his statement, he's saying it only became a problem basically when Larry came around. And I guess the part that I don't get is that these were false things in there and people could have seen that they were false because I put out screenshots weeks before he put up that statement. And in the screenshots, it says, basically that I told him I had a problem at the Big House 6. So
obviously I told him about it before Larry, but in his statement, he's saying that it never posed a problem. And I mean, even in my screenshots, you can see that it posed a problem for me. So for him to say that,
yeah,
to me, blatantly false.
Well, again, it's just from an outside perspective, such a tricky situation, but I really do appreciate you coming on. And again, if we're ever intertwined in the future, love to have you on again, hopefully for a bit of a happier story at the very least. But again, I'll have Bree and all of her socials down below, guys. Thank you all for tuning in, and thank you again, Bree, for coming on to share your story about the ever-rising craziness inside the FGC.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, I'll talk to you soon. Keep in touch. Thank you again for coming on. I really do appreciate you. And so, yeah, with all of that, guys, that has been the interview with Breezy, the ex-girlfriend of Ally. And it's a very weird story, obviously. And covering this story as well, her side of the story, I wanted a place, like I said before, for all of you guys to go and actually hear her thoughts about this and what, according to her own words, did happen throughout this. It's obviously a very tough thing to cover. I really did enjoy talking to her. It's very weird from an outside perspective as well to analyze the situation and not really sure on my side exactly how to cover this kind of stuff. So you guys can leave your thoughts and comments on the entire situation down below. Obviously, in light of recent accusations as well, with that being the 16-year-old boyfriend, Captain Zach, former boyfriend, I should say, of Ally, also coming out and saying they had match fixed together, or Zach had borderline, blackmailed him into actually throwing matches. It's a weird way to go out in terms of his retirement, if he does stay retired, if he does stay banned by most events out there. And alongside that, the future career of Zach has now also been put into a bit of skepticism because of the entire situation around that of Ally. It's tough saying it. I hope you guys did, to some degree, enjoy the interview. If you guys want more content like this, well, it's great to cover this kind of stuff, to shed more light on that of a weird, crazy situation involving a few pro players out there. As always, though, my name is Jake. I hope you guys all enjoy breaking down esports news here every single day. Until next time, guys, stay tuned. I'll see you soon.